This is the Dentist of Detroit with this, our third episode summarizing the Niantic project for Ingresstigate. We continue on November 19th, or day 1.19, and this one begins with a bang.
A leaked top-secret Niantic document reveals a laundry list of names, many of which you already know. In it, they identify people they call sensitives, people we think they intend to recruit or observe. The letter is copied to the who's who of the Niantic project. Dr. Victor Curies, who has not been introduced yet, but whose title is Niantic Research. The rest we know: Henry Bowles, Ken Owen, and Wen Ni. The first sensitive named is a Misty Hannah, who sees things and was also involved with Calvin on something called Project Wida. Next is Deborah Bogdanovich, whom we already know as a scientist in the Niantic project. Then we have Roland Jarvis, who we mentioned before briefly. Not much to add about him other than not all the team thinks he's a good choice. Now we have Dr. Hank Johnson. He's a media guy producing movies and television, and we'll be hearing more about him later. Next we have Enoch Dalby, a musician. And lastly, Yuri Aleric Nagasa, a physics researcher whose work Calvin describes as close to home. Not coincidentally, we then see a video of a Russian physics professor being grabbed by agents.
P.A. Chapeau then takes a moment to key up on multiple references to portals. Wherever they are or where they're talked about, agents tend to show up. We're also shown random clips from an NIA presentation explaining that XM tends to be stronger in populated areas, or are areas populated because there's more XM.
This brings us to day 24 and a series of emails between Calvin, Bogdanovich, and Ni. Bear in mind Deborah's role is to study the human effects of exotic matter. The discussion is about allowing Hank Johnson to film another show for his TV series that openly investigates portals and theorizes that humans go out of their way to make monuments at portal locations. They further state that Hank seems to be a neutral sensitive, meaning that he has shown neither affinity nor aversion to the Shaper Mind virus. Also interesting is Calvin states it would be good for one of the subjects, referring to Hank, to not be present when Dr. Linton Wolfe causes XM to spike at the Niantic portal.
Now this brings us to some obvious questions. If Hank is a neutral sensitive, does that mean there are sensitives who have either an affinity or an aversion to Shapers? Also, what's up with the coming experiment for the Niantic portal? If it takes Hank being on another continent for him to not be a part of that experiment, what do they think is actually going to happen there? Don't worry though, if you keep asking these questions, you will find answers.
Moving along, Dr. Oliver Linton Wolfe reports that his XM containment formula is almost complete, and that in deployment there will be an outbreak of heightened intelligence and epiphanies. Calvin is concerned that this could have negative side effects. Then we see a heavily redacted conversation between Calvin and Bogdanovich. Deborah is warning Calvin that the upcoming experiment is rushed and imprudent. Calvin feels pressure from his sponsors to show some results, so the plans remain on an accelerated schedule. Deborah leaves us with the ominous statement that Calvin is, quote, opening a box you'll never be able to shut, unquote.
Day 28, the name Martin Schubert enters the scene. Schubert is a theoretical physicist and has been assigned to the Niantic project. He's highly skeptical of the science behind the project and views it as a punishment on his career. Finally, we leave it with a conversation between Ada and Calvin. In it, Calvin states that in the past, Shapers tended to treat humans like a garden, but with the advent of science, they now intend to put us to use. What does that mean? This is the Dentist of Detroit for Ingresstigate.